two, three, four.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC and also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This, of course, all depends on when you are tuning in. But whatever time it is, you are welcome. And today I'd like to split the time between discussing a very fascinating interaction I had recently with the Muslim community here on Long Island, and also share with you important insights of teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that changed our world. Today, Sunday, the Jewish community throughout the world is marking the 27th anniversary since the passing of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of righteous memory, one of history's most influential Jewish leaders. But first, let me share with you the background to my encounter with a wonderful group of Muslims here on Long Island. I received a call from Rizwan Aladdin, who is the president of the Long Island chapter of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And he said that in an effort to stem racial discrimination and promote mutual understanding, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community invited yours truly to join in a conversation discussing the supreme justice in society and the hopes that this will help to establish peace and harmony in our communities. So I want to share with you my thoughts that I presented on this important Zoom gathering, which was also joined by our Nassau County Executive Laura Curran and the Police Commissioner Pat Ryan. They too were invited guests on this theme, the establishment of harmony in society. So I'd like to share with you my thoughts. First, why is there so much conflict in the world? Why is there so much animosity towards others? Well, let's first consider the following facts. Fact number one, people are different. No two minds are the same, just like no two faces are the same. If God wanted us all to be the same, He would have created a single human being. Guess what? There are 7.8 billion of us because the divine plan requires exactly 7 billion different individuals. Fact number two, differences tend to lead to conflict. Look at the world today. 90% of all the conflicts between groups of people who have a marked difference between them, race, religion, culture and nationality, economic class, the differences create an us versus them mentality. One group doesn't get the other and is therefore quick to blame all of its problems on the other. But it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, differences can also serve as the ingredients of harmony and unity. Think multiple flavors of a gourmet dish, right? Think of multiple colors in a painting. People are different, and differences often lead to alienation and conflict. But differences can also serve as an ingredient for a harmonious coexistence. How do we direct our diversity towards harmony rather than strife? So, I propose there in general are two approaches to this challenge. Number one is what I call the parallel tracks approach. The second one is this reciprocal relationship approach. Another term for the parallel tracks idea and approach is the popular term pluralism, where all paths are equal, none is greater, better, or higher than the other. Furthermore, they all share a common goal. So one would expect that ultimately there would be unity. But this approach often fails. Pluralism is not always a viable model. One of the problems is that the different paths meet only at the end, at the goal. Up until that point, they are different and distinct, with no lines of connection between them. This leaves open and even invites the possibility for alienation and conflict. Pluralism breaks down in this way. At the beginning, everything looks beautiful. Equality reigns, even mutual respect. The drawback with this method that each tract is completely independent of the other. I don't need you for anything. This may be okay, a situation. Some might even see this as a positive thing. But ultimately, our independence from each other has created a state of alienation. We each live in our own bubble of a closed world, which is disconnected from the other bubbles. We're all very different from each other and don't really understand the other's world. At best, we're tolerating each other because we value the idea of tolerance. End results is it all falls apart. Alienation has devolved into animosity and conflict. So I'm going to suggest what I would think is a successful approach in this problem. The second approach would be what I call a reciprocal relationship. In a reciprocal relationship, there's always a giver and a recipient. Without give and take, I need something from you and you need something from me, there's really no true relationship. And again, by definition, the giver stands on a high level. I have something that you want or need, while the recipient occupies a lower level. I like something that I want and I want to need from you. In other words, this model requires both humility and generosity. Humility for me to recognize that you have something that I need and to be open to receive it from me, and generosity to recognize that I have something that you need and to be open to sharing it with you. Every human being is worthy of profound respect. Let me explain. Our purpose in life is to emulate God. One of the most powerful ways we do so is by giving. When we give to someone, we recognize the common bond between us, our shared status as souls created in the image of God. Every human being, whether red, black, or different religious perspectives than me, is created in the image of God and therefore is worthy of profound respect. When we cannot, and when we connect to their inner godliness, we transcend the physical barriers that appear to divide us. So giving draws us closer, adding another drop of love and unity between us. This is the bedrock of creating a loving family. It is equally crucial to creating a united humanity. This does not mean, I want to emphasize this does not mean that we all need to be identical. Rather, unity means showing respect to each individual and appreciating their unique contribution to the collective whole. Especially in these challenging times, it is crucial that we build unity by engaging in acts of goodness and kindness, caring and tolerance and understanding towards others. So going forward, our challenge is to perceive opinions that differ from our own as containing a glimpse of divinity, a different aspect of truth that has eluded our grasp. We must find ourselves the love and the strength to value and cherish those divergent opinions, as well as the individuals who express them. Unfortunately, human nature seems prone to attack what is different, whether it's a difference in the color of skin, the type of clothing, or ideas espoused by others. If we are to learn and to value others, we must constantly be aware that their differences may be revealing to us a facet of truth that our own souls somehow have missed. This is the outline of what I shared with this wonderful group, and I do want to publicly appreciate the opportunity given to me by the Long Island chapter of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community led by Rizwan Aladdin for allowing me to share this forum with other wonderful leaders here in Nassau County. May we very speedily reach that point of ultimate peace and appreciation of each other. With this in mind, I cannot overly, express how I really feel that the Lubavitcher Rebbe whose 27th anniversary of passing is Yartzeit, Yom Elula, that is being reflected on today, worked to show each and every one of us how important every human being is. So, on a personal level, I miss the Rebbe terribly. I miss his penetrating gaze, his all-embracing smile, his unconditional love, his advice, and you can imagine how important the Rebbe is and continues to be with us, because his spiritual presence and his world-embracing influence continues to live on, and I feel this every single day. So I would like to share with you some of the Rebbe's saintly teachings that have changed the world. I would headline the first: don't see bodies and their limits, see souls and their infinite potential. I want to tell you a fascinating story about a young boy who went to his high school teacher. This is out there in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this Rebbe, his teacher, said to his high school student about his own experience he had with the Rebbe. When the teacher was a young boy, he had a terrible habit. Whenever he was presented with food, he would eat uncontrollably. And so he consulted the Rebbe. When he shared his behavior with the saintly Rebbe, the Rebbe said to him, "One day you'll become a great rabbi. So allow me to ask you, is this behavior befitting to a great rabbi?" At that point, the teacher said to his students, he ceased to see himself as a boy with a behavioral problem. So he began to see himself even as a boy, but with a great soul, whose current behaviors were unbecoming to the great rabbi he was about to become. And guess what? His terrible habit stopped immediately. This was the Rebbe's view on every person. He did not see human beings of what they seemed to be. He saw spiritual beings that they could and should become. If only we could see our children, all people, even during their lowest hours, as giants of mankind. There's a second teaching I want to share with you. He goes on to the following headline: sometimes the best way to deal with your negative emotions is not to deal with them at all. Instead, focus on actions of kindness. A woman once sought the Rebbe's advice about canceling her wedding. She had what we call a bad temper, and she was afraid that this would ruin her marriage. After listening to her attentively, the Rebbe responded, "Don't call off your marriage. God will bless you with many children, and these children will teach you balance, which will teach you patience. Meanwhile, do volunteer work, preferably in a hospital with children, and you will find your patience growing." Similarly, the Rebbe once wrote to a man who was complaining about his inability to shake off his melancholy, and that it seems that the principal cause of your situation, the Rebbe said, is that you ruminate about your situation constantly. The more you take your mind off it, the better it will become. And the medical avenues that you will be trying will become more successful. In order to make this easier, you should keep busy with something completely different, no matter what it is. If you take your mind off it completely, within a short time, it'll be healed. You see, perhaps this is why the Rebbe so often repeated the words of our sages. The deed, hamaisa hu ikar, the deed is what counts most. For at the end of the day, we may experience all sorts of moods, but a smile, a helping hand, a generous act can mold us and our lives infinitely more than the emotions of our hearts. Fascinating. Unbelievable. Let me continue. There's another key thought, key teaching of the Rebbe that changed the world, and that is humanity is one. Shortly after the infamous Crown Heights riots of 1990, the then mayor of New York was David Dinkins. He came to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a blessing for peace between the two groups, he said, the Jews and the blacks in their neighborhood. The Rebbe's response was stirring. Not two people with two sides, but one people on one side. Nowadays, when social tensions are high and humanity is split in so-called sides, the Rebbe's words ring loudly. Let us recall that intrinsically, we are all united by the image of God with which each and every human being is created. We can be extremely different, or I would say even externally different, but as the Rebbe taught that internally, we are one people on one side. Another teaching of the Rebbe that we reflect upon on this day as we mark the Rebbe's yahrzeit of 27 years. When the Rebbe was just 3 years old, his mother found him playing a game with his friends. They were each trying to climb a tree to the highest peak. All the other children tried to climb high, but to no avail. But her son succeeded in just a few minutes. He was on the top of the tree. So she asked him, "How did you manage to climb to the peak of the tree so quickly?" And the Rebbe to be, right? He's 3 years old at that point, responded, "My friends looked up, but they looked down. So they became afraid of the falling. But I kept on looking up, so I never became afraid." So throughout the Rebbe's leadership, this idea was a common theme. The Rebbe pleaded with us to look heavenward, to be a partner with God, and make Him and His eternal values an integral part of our lives. For the Rebbe knew that when we are connected above, we won't fall down. When our eyes gaze upwards, our hearts are filled with faith and reassurance. And when our hands reach out to hold the hands of our heavenly co-captain, we may just discover that Hashem, He is continuously helping us to navigate our lives in the best of directions, even when, from time to time, we may lose control. I'm not finished, my friends. I'm not finished. The Rebbe had many, many teachings, and I'm going to give you now the fifth one. Every moment in life has a divine call, and every place has a holy purpose. Some 50 years ago, a young student was about to embark on a long, multi-stop journey, and he asked the Rebbe for a blessing. The Rebbe responded with a relevant lesson. While in the desert for 40 years, the Jewish people were instructed to set up the tabernacles at every stop, even during their one-night encampments. Because in life, there's no such thing as merely passing through a place. Every moment in life, even the most challenging one, has a divine call. Every place has a holy purpose, and every person has a vital role to play. And so, wherever you go, do a mitzvah, and in this way, you will bring holiness to every place. Life, too, is a journey, and in this journey, many face challenges, physical or mental, temporary or permanent. But the Rebbe taught us that in every moment, buds of blessings are blooming. In every pain, much gain can be found. It is up to us to heed the divine call in every moment and bring holiness to every place that we encounter. Now, again, everything must grow. We all remember the famous Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, Rabbi Evan Yisrael Steinsaltz of blessing memory. He is really an unbelievable leader. He passed away not too long ago, and he is one who is responsible of translating the Talmud first into modern day Hebrew, then became to English and many, many languages. His famous motto was, "Let my people know." He wanted every one of us to be knowledgeable. So he once shared one of his last communications with the Rebbe. He had asked the Rebbe whether he should be slowing down, as his plate was completely filled with so many different projects. At that time, Rabbi Adin was involved in 3 full-time jobs: scholarly writing, outreach work in Russia, and a network of schools in Israel. The Rebbe's reply to the Rabbi Steinsaltz, Rabbi Adin, was typical. continue to do all of these things and to do more things and work even harder. This was the Rebbe's approach with every person he encountered. He was never satisfied with past deeds, as glorious as they may have been. Rather, he always challenged us to do more, to be more each and every day. As the Rebbe once quipped, every living thing must grow. So in the words of Rabbi Steinsaltz, the Rebbe wanted to change our very nature from living as ordinary people with ordinary dealings to become extraordinary people with extraordinary achievements in every single sense. Now I want to continue this under, again, I would say, a highlight or a heading of the lonely cry of a child is as significant as the words of a world leader. I take you back to 1983. There was a 4-year-old child who had been diagnosed with a genetic disease, and his parents were flooded with anguish. And with tears in their eyes, they turned to the late Lubavitcher Rebbe to ask for a blessing. The Rebbe's response did not tarry. He said, "I will pray for your son at the graveside of my father-in-law," was the Rebbe's reply. And indeed, one of the most important things that we can do in reference to today's yahrzeit of the Rebbe, the Yom Hilula, is to go to the Ohel and go to where the Rebbe's resting place is in the Old Montefiore Cemetery in Queens. And if anybody wants more information, has never had a chance, either call us at 516-739-3636 or just go online and go to Ohel, OHEL.com, OHEL.com, and it gives you all the information, the background, and the significance, and how to prepare in going to visit the Rebbe to pray at his gravesite. So in any case, the Rebbe often would say to people, "I will pray for the person at the graveside of his father," because the Rebbe and his father, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, they lay side by side. So in response to this family, these parents who were really upset about their 4-year-old with this genetic disease, said, "I will pray for your son." A few months go by, and the genetic disease of this boy deteriorated, got worse. So his parents wrote back to the Rebbe asking for another blessing. The Rebbe, whose mailbox is inundated with approximately, hundreds of letters each day from around the globe, took the time to respond to these anxious parents, and he wrote back, "I have already promised you, I will pray for your son at the graveside of my father-in-law," and the Rebbe reassured them. Sure enough, the 4-year-old's boy's condition stabilized. And thank God, the boy today lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, happily married with 10 children, and he leads a healthy life without any medical hiccups. Now, what's so moving about the story, my friends? Not only is it personal to the family that happened, and of course, obviously, great thing that the Rebbe's blessings were fulfilled and the person became healthy and well, but there's another dimension to this. The parents wrote a letter, got a blessing, and then a few months later, wrote again. So a few months had gone by, and the Rebbe had not forgotten that family. See, with that second reply, he had reassured the family that he had not forgotten them either. Now, understand, you're talking about the Rebbe. He was a man of the world whose advice was sought by presidents of nations, chairmen of corporations, and he may have witnessed, and I'm sure felt the pain and the tears of thousands of people who would confide in him their deepest secrets. But the Rebbe never forgot the lonely cry of this one single child. So as we commemorate today, on Sunday, and these coming days, and think about the Rebbe, may we continue to learn from him and his teachings. And may we translate them into actions of goodness and kindness that will surely perpetuate his immeasurable legacy and ultimately bring healing and redemption to the world. And so this is what we are learning, this is what we're thinking about, this is what we're bringing with. This is all reflective of the uniqueness of what this day represents to each and every one of us. I want to point out that last Tuesday of last week, was the date when the Rebbe and his wife, the Rebbetzin, came to the United States in 1941. And that day, in reflection now, in hindsight, marked the beginning of the revolution of these kinds of teachings and much more that began that day in 1941. And his arrival, together with his Rebbetzin, they had miraculously been saved on a boat that brought them from Lisbon, Portugal, to Staten Island. Took about 10, 11 days to come across the ocean, despite the U-boats and all, of course, the Nazis who were looking to shoot down any boats. And they finally made it miraculously here and began a whole revolution in this part of the world. Now, the Rebbetzin, that means the Rebbe's wife, Chaim Mushka, played a very important role behind the scenes. I just want to share with you one little story of the carefulness. Now, she hated publicity. She could have had an exalted seat, a high position, an honored position in the synagogue or at the Fabrengens, but she chose to stay in the background. So there were times when the Rebbe had to have their lodgings close to 770. But she didn't want to just arrive with a car in the front. Everybody would see her. So they devised a way where they're able to get off Union Street, which was a street behind, not that many people. She would kind of slip in from the car through the back, through a little walkway into the house next to 770. So they would be together during a difficult weather period and would save the Rebbe walking home at night, especially on Shabbos. And that's how it worked. She would come in late, about 3/4 of an hour before Shabbos, slip into the house. People were busy anyway. People weren't around. And then right after Shabbos, she would slip out through the back entrance and go back to her home on President Street without anybody knowing. Well, one particular time, a young man of 17 years old, he came late for shul. He decided he would go through the same back alleyway. Little did he know, as he was coming in, rushing through, he literally pushed, he bumped into the Rebbe's wife, the Rebbetzin, and he realized afterwards it happened. Now the Rebbetzin quickly turned to the side and looked through the fence. And after Shabbos, he realized what had happened, who he bumped into, so he wrote a letter of apology. And it got back to the Rebbetzin of this boy, and she was upset. Why was she upset? She said, "Bet I shouldn't have known his name," because she didn't want to have any, in her mind, she said she didn't want to have any negative feelings about anybody. She didn't want to hear about his name. And the reason why she quickly turned and faced the fence after this little encounter, so that she shouldn't see him, and he wouldn't be embarrassed in case he recognized who she was. She didn't want to hold any bad feelings about anybody, tried not to even see who he was, and was upset when she was actually told who it was. Just the feelings of caring for other people. Let's think about that today, how careful we must be in so many ways. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you a wonderful week.